Okay, can everyone hear me? Okay, I assume we're good. So it's 8:01 and the class will be recorded. So the recording will be put on Google Classroom, so you guys can always look back and review things if you want. So welcome to Intro to Python. Today's our first class, week 1. I'm really excited, you guys, and today we're going to be learning about variables, data types, and typecasting. So just a little welcome. I'm Claire. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a sophomore at Germantown Friends in Pennsylvania. So in this course, we'll be learning the basics of Python, the programming language. So at the end of these 6 weeks, you'll be able to do projects on your own. You'll learn a lot more, and it's going to be really fun. Okay, so to run Python, Python is a language, right? And one sec. So Python is a programming language, and someone can't hear me. Can everyone else hear me? Okay, one sec. Okay. So a lot of people, some of you may not know anything about Python, and that's okay. And to run Python, to use this programming language, some people, they download an app on their computer, or they download a software to use this language. And you can do that if you want, but I find that the easiest way is to use Replit. It's a website where you can open projects and you can write your programming in there. So we're going to start by making that account. We're going to be using this website a lot throughout our 6 weeks. So this is going to be pretty important. You guys can use the link I attached in the slides, or you can just Google Replit. Oops. So basically, for those of you who just joined, we just got started and we're making a Replit account. That's where we'll be running our language, and that's where we'll be working in class. So just click on the first link, Replit. And if you already have an account, great, you can log in. If not, you can press sign up and just make your account. I'll give you guys 5 minutes. 5 minutes or however much time you need to make an account. Hello, for those of you who joined, we just got started and we're on the 3rd slide. So right now we're making a Replit account. Replit is where we'll be running our language of Python. Python is a programming language, and this website makes it really easy for us to write code and to test it out to see if it's working. So you can use the link in the slide, or you can just Google Replit and make an account. Remember your password, write it down, because we'll be using it in every class. So
Okay, thank you. Sorry that I got a little bit late. I just have problems with the time zone.
oh yeah, no problem. And the class will be recorded too. So if you guys miss a class or want to review, you can always look back.
Thank you.
For the how do we want to use Replit? Do we press for education?
What are the other options?
There's for personal use, for work, and for education.
For personal use would be good. So right now we're making Replit accounts, and if you're done, you can send me a message in the chat or just put a thumbs up reaction so I know you're good.
And for the how familiar are you with programming? Do we press new to coding?
Yeah, respond with how you are.
Hello.
Hello.
I just joined in and I can hear you now. What were you talking about earlier?
Yeah, so we're just doing a welcome, and right now we're working on making a Replit account. Replit is where we'll be writing our code, and it's just a really easy website for us to use every class.
Oh, okay. Let me do that.
Okay, great. Okay, so just to show you guys how to make a Replit account, I Googled Replit, and now there's on the top right, there's a blue button for sign up if you don't have an account. So I press sign up, and say I want to sign up with Google. So I want to continue with Google, and I want to make an account for this email. And I'll use it for personal use since I'll be just coding. And I'm a beginner. So we can just skip this step, doesn't really matter. And now that we're in, you guys, if you logged in with a password, write down your password, or remember which Google account you used. And now we're in Replit, and this is basically it. And for those of you who just came in, right now, we're just making a Replit account. Replit is where we'll be working with Python, and all you do is click the link in the slide or Google Replit and sign in with Google or make a password and username. I'll wait maybe 1 more minute, or if anyone needs more time, you can let me know.
Yeah, I need a little more time.
Okay. 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 If you don't have your Replit account yet, that's okay. You can still make one you can make one after class because our homework is going to be on Replit, so that's going to be important there. So now we'll just leave Replit alone. We'll come back to it at the end of class. Okay. So we're going to start with Python now. So what is Python exactly? Python is a general use programming language. You use it to make apps, games, and many other projects that you like. And it's really a basic fundamental language if you want to get started in computer science or otherwise. Okay, so now that we have our replit counts, we're going to move on to our first topic for this course, which is variables. So you may have heard of a variable in math when you use when you find slope, or if you haven't done that, a variable is used to store data in a computer, and it's really helpful to think of a variable like a box. So you can label a box. For example, in the diagram below, I can label one box name, and I can put data or of some value inside the box. So the name of the variable cannot change, but I can put stuff in and take stuff out. Making a variable in Python is pretty much somewhat similar to making a variable in math. To make a variable, what you need to do is you need to tell a computer what the variable is equal to. And you use the equal sign to tell the computer, variable equals this number. For example, I can name a variable anything I want, as long as it's, it can be a letter, it can be a number, a word, a phrase. So if I have a number called good number, I will make it equal to 9. So I'll use the single equal sign to make it equal to 9. I can make it equal to any number that I want or any phrase that I want. So for now, just remember to make sure to name your variables with a descriptive name. So for example, if you're doing homework and you name a variable A, I wouldn't know what A is, but if you name it favorite number, it would be easier for people who are helping you with your code to understand your code. Now that we're done with variables are honestly really fundamental, and you will always be using variables in Python. And next are data types. There are different types of things that we can store in variables. For example, you can store a number or a decimal or a word or a name. And data type is just the categories that we put these values into. So in the picture to the right, we have a little diagram. Our different data types are integers, floats, strings, and booleans. And I'll get more into it in the next slide. So there are 4 main data types. There are a few more not so popular ones, but these are just the most basic. We have integers, which, as you may have heard in math, it's just a whole number. An integer is a number without a decimal point. It can be 0, it can be negative, or it can be positive. So anything like -33 or 0 or 213, those are all integers. And we're going to go down. We're going to learn about strings. Strings is just a fancy word for words or characters. So, for example, anything with quotation marks around it is considered a string. So I can have an animal in it, a name inside of it, or maybe a number plus a word. Anything with quotation marks is considered a string. And for floats or doubles, right now the words floats and doubles are pretty much interchangeable in Python. So that just means any number with a decimal point. Floats are different from integers, and that's really important when we learn about adding and subtracting. A float is a number with a decimal point, and if you look in the examples, you might think 1.0 is equal to 1, right? So 1.0 is a float, but just 1 is an integer. And that might be really confusing to you, but since they're equal, right? In math, 1 is equal to 1. But since 1.0 has a decimal point, that means that the decimal point makes it a float. Even if it's mathematically equal to the number 1, if it has a decimal point, it is a float. And on Boolean, yeah.
So basically anything with a decimal point is a float.
Yes, any number with a decimal point. Okay, oops. And lastly, we have Booleans. Boolean is just a fancy word for true or false. So Boolean is only true and false. There's no other word. Only true or false. Okay, so some important things to know that on the left-hand side, there's a box. It says 22 is an integer, but 22 with quotes around it is a string. So this is kind of similar to the thing about integers versus floats. Anything with quotation marks around it must be a string. So even if 22 is equal to 22, but if one has a quotation marks around it, it makes it a string. So I would recommend writing these four things down on a Post-it note, or so you guys can look back and reference it easily. So I'll be using these 4 words a lot in our next couple of classes and slides. So it might be easier for you to have a little reference sheet to look back to. Okay, commenting out. Commenting out is used when you want to make notes in your program, or just write code, write a phrase, or write instructions, or write comments that don't actually run in the program. So you can use 3 apostrophes or hashtags. I'll be going over this more once we get started writing code in Replit. Reassignment. So reassignment is the fancy word for saying changing variables, changing the values in variables. Basically, what reassignment is say in the example, I have the variable name animal is equal to dog. So what if I don't want animal to be equal to dog anymore? What if I want it to be equal to elephant, for example? So to change what is stored inside a variable, all I have to do is state the variable again and write equal signs and make it equal to something else, right? So animal is dog. Animal equals to dog. But if I want to change animals to a number like 99, for example, I'll just write animal equals 99 on the next line of code. So it's rather simple. On the first two lines right here for animal, that's for changing the value of animal, the variable animal, into something else. Now on the latter 2 lines of code, it gets a little bit more complicated. We have the variable name food is equal to hot dog. Now, then we have animal is equal to food. So we're incorporating 2 different variables and sort of combining them, mashing them together. So what do you think the last 2 lines of code, what do you think animal will be equal to? Animal was once equal to dog and elephant, but now we're reassigning animal to something else. Can you guys think of what animal is now equal to?
It's still equal to elephant.
Like animal to food, a food that has like an animal name, like hot dog. Example.
Right. So now the variable animal will be equal to hot dog. And why is that? Because as Kenzie said, animal was once equal to dog and elephant, but now we're reassigning it. We have food is equal to hot dog, and if we want animal to be equal to food, now we want to think, okay, what is food equal to? So we know food is equal to hot dog. So we can basically think animal is equal to food, and food is equal to hot dog. So now animal must be equal to hot dog. It's a little bit confusing, it's a little bit complex, but good job, Tim. Animal is equal to hot dog because of reassignment. So you guys will get practice on this, so don't worry if you guys think it's a little bit confusing. Okay, here's the practice now. So you guys can write it down on a piece of scrap paper or in your notebook. So right now we have my name is equal to Emmett and my age is 16. My full name is Emmett H. Now we're reassigning my name to be my full name. So the two questions are the lines that have a hashtag in front of it. So the first question is, it's Emmett's birthday today, and so my age equals my age plus 1. So what does my age equal to now? The second question.
17.
Good job. Good job. So the second question is, what are my name and my age equal to? Remember, we just answered what my age is equal to. As Roger said, it's 17. So my name is reassigned to something else.
Emmett H.
Good job. It is, my name is now equal to Emmett H. Emmett is not my name, and this is just a random example that I put. You guys, this is just sort of an example, so you can change the value of Emmett or 16. You guys can change it to, for example, your own name and your own age. Okay, so here are the answers. Yep, my name equals Emmett H and my age equal to 17. Good job, everyone. Okay, so that was a lot of information that I just threw at you. Now, we're going to learn about print statements. Print statements are used in probably every single future program that you will write, and it's really important to understand what this does. All right. So what does print do? The print function facilitates code to the console for communication. So code is where you will in a couple of minutes, you'll write code on the left-hand side, like in the picture, and your console will be the right-hand side where your outcome will be shown. Just like if you sort of think about it, a printer prints out a piece of paper and gives you an outcome. A computer does something very similar where it will process your code and it will print out an outcome for you to read. Here's the syntax of a print statement. Before I go over this, syntax is very important in Python and any other programming language. So if you get just one word wrong, or if you have a single typo, or you miss a parentheses, your program will tell you, uh-oh, there's an error. So you want to make sure that every single detail about what you type out on your code is correct. So here's how the syntax works. You will type print with parentheses, and inside your parentheses will be what you want to print. So anything inside your parentheses will be printed to your computer. And when I mean print, it means that it will show up on your console and that'll be your outcome for your lines of code. So for example, I print hello there with quotation marks around it. And you might think, okay, now print hello there is going to print hello there in quotation marks. But I'm going to show you guys what will happen when I print hello there. Let me log into my Replit and I'll show you guys. So basically, I'll show you guys how to create a Replit in one sec after the print example. If I type print hello there, some of you might say, okay, it's going to print hello there in quotation marks. Let's see what it actually prints. It prints hello there without quotation marks. So I told you that the computer will print whatever is in parentheses. So doesn't that mean it'll print the quotation marks? So it doesn't print, the reason it doesn't print the quotation marks is because the data type of hello there is a string, because strings have quotation marks around them, right? So strings have quotation marks around them, meaning when I print a string, the outcome that is going to show up on my console is not going to have quotation marks. It's going to be what's inside the quotation marks. So if I want to print, for example, print 58 because I want to print a number, it's going to print 58 without the quotation marks because 58 is a string. And back to the slides for our next example, you can also print variables. For example, I have a variable called x and the variable has 5 in it. I want to print x. So print x is going to print the variable, and what is inside of that variable is 5. So basically, we're going to print 5. Let me show you. Print. If I have a variable named, let's say, today's date, it's the 11th. So I want to print today's date. And if I run the program, I'll print 11. Pretty simple. Let's say I want to print, today is September 11th. Now I changed today's date to a string. So if I run this code, print today's date, it will no longer print 11, but it will print today is September 11th, like this. So on the right is your console, it's labeled console, and on the left is your main.py, or basically just where you'll write your code. Okay, so our last example on the slide is how to combine different items with a comma. So here we have print x, comma is equal to quotation marks is equal to 5. So what the comma does here is combine these two things in a print statement. You can't use a comma outside of a print statement, but commas act as sort of an addition sign, a plus sign inside the print statement. Okay, let's move on. Okay, well, now we're going to talk about operators. Okay. on to operators, we can also do math in Python, which is sort of in a way how we can make a basic calculator in Python. So operators are basically the addition sign, subtraction, modulo, multiplication, division, and exponent. So these are pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You guys probably already know this. So addition is just the addition sign, subtraction is the subtraction, and modulo, some of you may know this, some of you may not. Modulo is represented with a percent thing, with the percent value. To get the modular sign, the percent, it's right above the 5 on your computer. Modulo returns the remainder of a division operation. So basically, in their example, 5 modulo 2 is 1 because I do 5 divided by 2, which gives me 2 with a remainder of 1. I disregard the dividend that we get in the equation, and I just take the remainder. So the remainder is 1, so the modulo is 1. Multiplication, in Python, we don't use X, we use the little asterisk symbol. And in division, it's the slash symbol. Yes, Tim?
Exponents, it's just 5, those little dots on the 2 little dots, 2 equals 25. I don't understand that.
Oh yeah, I'll get there. So for exponents, we raise the first value to the second, to the power of the second. So basically, how exponents work is like this. I'll take 5 to the power of 2. That's how you say it, to the power of something. And this is basically equal to me saying 5 times 5. Because I want to multiply 5 by itself 2 times. And I want it 2 times because this second number is a 2. And 5 times 5 equals 25. Okay, let's do another example with exponents. Say I want 2 to the power of 3. How will we expand this equation here? Yep, you can unmute.
Is it 2 times 2 times 2, which is equal to 8?
Yep, good job. 2 times 2 times 2, because we want to multiply 2 by itself 3 times, which is equal to 8. And you can also raise something to the negative power and also to a fraction. It's sort of more complicated to explain mathematically, but Python will allow you to do that. So you can test it out if you want in a program. For example, I can do 3 to the power of -2, and it'll give me some fraction, some decimal. That's really complicated, but Python can do it. An important thing to note here is that not only can we add numbers and decimals, but we can also add strings. So strings meaning a group of words. It's okay if you guys don't understand modulo. We probably won't be using that much. Okay, for division, does it just return the quotient, or does it also return the variable? Okay, for division, when you divide integers in the example in red, we will get an integer in return. So 5 divided by 2, in Python, it will return 2. But mathematically, 5 divided by 2 is not 2, it's equal to 2.5. So when when you divide two integers, the result will also be an integer. So Python will automatically round down to the number. So the result is 2.5, but Python 2.5 is not an integer, it's a double. So it's just gonna round down and return 2. That's a good question. So let's test it out. Say I want to print 5 divided by 2. Let's see what that gives us. 5 divided by 2. Okay, my bad, we get 2.5. Now let's test it out. What happens if we do 5 divided by 2.5? We get 2.0. So Python will divide mathematically, and it will give you a correct result, even if the equation is really complicated, or if you personally don't know how to solve it. Python will know how to solve it if you give it the correct syntax, you use the correct symbols to do the math. Okay, yeah, I can explain more about modulo. So modulo is also used in math, and it's a bit more complicated when you see it in school in math. But in simple words, it's basically when I take a number modulo another number, it will return the remainder of the division. So here we have 5 modulo 2. So first we will divide 5 by 2. First we do 5 divided by 2. And we get 2.5, or 2 with the remainder of 1, right? Now in modulo, we don't care about what we get from the division operation. All we want to do is take the remainder. So we disregard the result of the division. We disregard the result of the division, and the modulo will be the remainder. Modulo equals remainder. So let's do another example. So let's say I want 16 modulo 7. Let's put that in a print statement so we can see what we get. Okay, let's run it and see we get 2. So does anybody want to explain why the program returns 2? Yes, Jason?
Because when you divide 16 by 7, it's 2. I mean, like, if it's 14, it's 2, and if you add 2, it's 16, so the remainder is 2. So it's the modulo.
Right. Yep. Good job. So basically we do 16 divided by 7, which we get 2 with a remainder of 2, right? Because 14 plus 2 is equal to 16. And we disregard the result and we take the remainder. So we disregard disregard 2 for the result, and the modulo is equal to 2, which is the remainder. Modulo equals remainder. So if you guys want to learn more about exponents or modulo, if you are confused, Google is a really helpful resource, and I recommend using it if you need help on something specific, or if you want to watch other tutorials with other examples. But you guys can obviously post in the classroom and ask questions there or on Zoom. Okay, so here's some practice with operators. So these examples will be using the operators, the operation symbols that we learned in the previous slide, and this will also incorporate variables in the print statement. So you guys can do this practice on a piece of paper and give it about 3 minutes, 5 minutes before we unmute and share answers, so other people can have a chance to think about it. Yes, Nicole. So when you add 5 and 11, 5 and 11 equals 16. So now 16 is equal to the variable z. Yes, Tim?
So how do we get the prints? Cause I'm looking at the multiplication thing, like the second one.
Yeah.
And it says z, parentheses z minus 1, parentheses multiplication sign 3. How am I supposed to get the print? Is like the ending 3, or do I just multiply that 3?
Okay, so we want to print z at the end, so we'll sort of disregard the print statement. We'll find the value of z and then come back to the print. So for the second line of code, z equals z minus 1 times 3. So first we find out that z is equal to 17, right? Because 5 plus 7 is equal to 5 plus 11 is equal to 16. So now z is equal to 16. Now the second line of code, we'll just copy z. Z is equal to, we'll insert the new value of z into here. 16 minus 1 times 3. Are we all good here? Because we take what we got from Z, which is 16, and we put it into the next line of code. Okay. Next, we find that this is equal to 15 times 3. Oops. The font. Okay. 15 times 3 is equal to 45. Now we have a new value of Z. Z is now equal to 45. So now let's put 45 into the next line of code. 45 modulo 6. So this is where it gets a little bit trickier. Here we have, so let's think, 45 divided by 6, we have 45 divided by 6, we get 7 with a remainder of 3. So I'll write this in parentheses, 7 with a remainder of 3. Which now the modulo is basically equal to the remainder, which is 3. Nicole says 45 modulo times 6. So when we have modulo, we want 2 numbers on each side of the percent symbol. So we have 45 modulo 6. Modulo is a bit tricky, you guys, so good job on making it through. Now we have Z is equal to 3. So we're going to put 3 into the next line of code. 3, 2 star symbol, 2 asterisks, 2. So basically that just means 3 to the power of 2. So 3 times itself 2 times. So 3 times 3 equal to 9. So when, print Z, the last line of code, we have that Z is equal to 9. So when we print Z, we will have 9. The computer will have an output of 9. So the answer is 9. Good job if you got it correct. Good job if you didn't. It is a little bit complicated, I admit, but it's not, we'll get the hang of it. Next, we'll move on to adding strings. Adding strings, another fancy word for it is called concatenation. But basically we smush 2 strings together and we use 2 equal signs for concatenation instead of 1. So we remember that when we assign variables, we use 1.
Move. How do I
equals-
make it to move? I don't understand that again.
Can you repeat that? I think I cut out.
Oh,
Tim?
sorry. I was just trying to do the print thing.
Okay. We'll have like an optional homework practice to review all of what we learned today, so don't worry about that. So we use two equal signs for concatenation instead of 1 equal sign. So here's another quick practice. What will the following program print out? str or string is just a variable name, by the way. And we use this plus symbol to add the 2 strings together. Okay, I think we will skip this practice and we'll come back to it because there's something in here that I'm going to tell you guys about in 1 second, which is on the second line, we have int parentheses, that's called casting. So we'll come back to the practice in 1 sec. For casting, we use casting with variables. We temporarily change the type of variable or expression. It's not permanent. And so to change a variable into a different data type, the data types being int, string, float, and Boolean, we use shortened symbols to cast. So for example, float and insert your variable, or insert a number or a string, or int of parentheses, string parentheses. So here's a little visual down here. This is pretty important. So var1 equals float of 3. So var1 will now be 3.0, because remember, float means with the decimal point. So we want 3, but with a decimal point. So that means it's 3.0. And now let's do second example. var2 is equal to int of 7.65. Now var2 will be equal to 7. You might think, okay, well, in math we round up. 7.65 would be 8. But in Python, they just cut off the decimal point and they round down, basically. So it's equal to 7. var3 equals to string of 11.32. var3 will now be equal to quotation marks 11.32, because to change it into a string, we must have quotation marks around every single string. So why, you might ask, okay, why do we use casting? We use casting in order to add different variables together. So we can't add, in the example on the bottom right, the first print statement, we have print a plus b, and a equals to 12 and b equals to a string of 24. And it says illegal because you cannot concatenate or add different variables of different data types. So I can't add an integer and a string together. That doesn't work. So in order to actually add these together, we want to change them to the same data type. So meaning they can both be strings or they can both be integers, but we can't have both. So we have print string or str of a plus b. str of a is basically 12 with quotation marks around it. And when we add two strings, the result is just two strings smushed together, like a sentence, right? So we would have, the result would be 1, 2, 2, 4. And it's because we just smush them together. We don't do actual math. Since they're strings, all we do is smush them together. Well, on the line below, we have a plus int of b. So now b is equal to 24 without the quotation marks. And this means that now that they're both integers, if they're integers or floats, aka decimals, then the computer will do actual math, and the computer will actually add 12 plus 24, which equals to 36. So here is some more practice that you can look on your own. And for division is a little bit weird in Python. We had a question about division, and here is more of it in detail. If you divide an integer by an integer, the answer will be a float, aka a decimal. However, if an integer is needed, a cast to an integer can be applied to the division. So what does that mean? I have on the example here, 7 divided by 2 is equal to 3. But that is not actually true, because 7 divided by 2 is equal to 3.5. And while the results sort of change if you have a decimal point in your numbers or not. So 7.0 divided by 2 gives the real number, which has a decimal point. And in order to change it to an int or a double, you will cast it, meaning you put int and parentheses, or double and parentheses. So for example, let's move on to the next. Let's go back to the practice that we skipped. here's the practice. You guys can take a quick minute or two to try this. This is a little bit advanced. It's a little bit tricky. So if you don't get it, that's okay. And this is all new to us, so we'll have review and we'll get practice in.
When does this class end?
The class ends at 9 o'clock Eastern time. So that might be 6 o'clock for those in California. But I might go a little overtime. If you have to leave, that's okay. It'll be recorded. So after this practice, we'll go over how to do it and go over a quick summary, and I'll show you the homework.
So,
Is
okay.
the homework optional?
The homework is optional. So the homework, it's just a lot of practice. So I really recommend you do it since it sort of refreshes your mind. But it's not a big deal if you don't do it. If you need help on the homework, you can write me a comment in Google Classroom and I can help you with it. But it's optional. Okay, so now let's go over the practice. It was a little bit hard. So the answer is 2.5. And here are my steps on how I completed this. So first, the variable string is equal to two strings added together, 1 and 5. But string is not equal to 6. That is not true. String is actually equal to 15. 15 with quotation marks around it. Because when we learned about concatenation, we know that if we add two strings, we smush them together. When we add two strings, we don't do actual math. We just combine them as is. So 15 is the new result of string. I think this was the tricky part, the very first step. And string is equal to int of string. So int of 15. So we want to turn a string into an integer. So basically it is now 15 as an integer. Now we have a new variable introduced here called num. Num is equal to string divided by 2.0, which is 15 divided by 2.0. Yes, 2.5 is the correct answer. 15 divided by 2.0 is equal to 7.5. And why is it 7.5 and not 7? Why doesn't Python round down here? It's because we have a decimal point, we have a decimal number in our division operation. So 2.0 is a decimal. So that means the result will also be a decimal. Num is equal to num minus 5. So 7.5 minus 5 is equal to 2.5. So now print num, print 2.5, the answer is 2.5. Everybody good on that? It was a little bit complicated and we won't have this much too tricky stuff. Now let's go on to our summary. I'll make this quick if you guys have other places to be. So we learned about variables, data types, reassignment, print statements, operators, concatenating, and typecasting. So I won't read through all of this, so you guys can read through this on your own. This is just the basics of what we learned today. You guys can obviously go deeper into the slides. Forking a REPL, this is going to be really quick. This is going to be how we're going to do all of our homeworks. Forking is just a replet term, a replet term. So basically, forking a REPL means making your own copy of that REPL program so that you can edit and write your own code in the example REPL. So it's kind of like making a copy of a Google Doc or making a copy of a Google slide, but on Replit. So this is the homework. It's not mandatory, but it is highly encouraged. So here are the links. This is the link to the homework, and here are the answers. I'll show you guys how to fork a Replit. All I did was click on the link and open the Replit. So this is what practice homework that I made for you guys. And on the right-hand side, under the run button, there's a little button that says fork. So I'll just press fork. I can give it my own name if I want. For example, I want to add my name to it, and I'll press fork. Now I'll have the exact same REPL program, but I can edit and write my own stuff on it. So this is where you'll do your homework. That is optional, but highly recommended. Here are just a couple practice problems that are all about what we learned today. And here are the answers if you want to check your answers. Here's extra practice, again, optional, but I think it's really good. If you guys need help on the homework, you can at me in Google Classroom, or I'll put my email in the chat. There's a thing on a Replit where I can go into your program and see what you're doing. So if you need help, you guys can always ask me. So that's it for day one. Really exciting. You guys learned a lot of different things, and I hope you guys can put that into practice in the homework, but totally understandable if you don't. So that's it for today's class. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Do you have any questions for me? You guys are free to leave if not. Bye, guys.
Bye, thank you.
See ya.
Bye.